Are there more than 17 plans of approach was asked as a result of the collaboration between the organization, St. Martin's organization, and the TWO. All of the plans of approach, reports, and implementation agendas that are formally approved by the government of St. Martin are published. At the moment, there are 44 published documents, including 19 plans of approach. The plans of approach that are still in draft, therefore not yet formally approved, will be published once they have been approved. Of course, for that to happen, it has to go through the trajectory of approval in the Council of Ministers. To the question as to whether there are more than 5 actual reports, the answer, I think, was clarified in the previous question, and a full list of all published reports can be found online. And there are more than 5. However, not all have been approved as yet. Concretely, what is being done, what actions are being undertaken on the basis of these reports? Based on research reports, plans of approach are drafted, and as I mentioned earlier, some are in the beginning phases of execution. I can go to the published report. B6 is one of the measures that falls within the Ministry of General Affairs to give an elucidation as to what is in the report and what is being done. So B6 is the framework of the measure is the framework of optimum staff deployment, the staff formation, job occupation and actual presence, and deployment of employees of government and government organizations will be examined. If staff wrongfully receive wage, depending on the situation, measures will be taken, etc. That's the measure. What was done, or the activity under B6, is that an employee satisfaction survey was done and an exit survey was done. These are actual things that happened, activities that took place, and they was looked at in terms of capacity building and retention. In the report, you will also read that they were adopted, so they were approved as the final product. So the whole plan on how that was to be executed was done. Currently, with that survey, the project team submitted recommendations to the Council of Ministers, which were approved. And since then, a working group, what is it called? The focus group of civil servants was established. Initially, there were some 29 persons that signed up voluntarily to be part of said focus group. And after meeting with them, 17 remain committed to working together to actually give implementation recommendations on the report that had been submitted. They have, in the meantime, presented their findings to me as Minister of General Affairs, to the Council of Ministers, and to the Secretary General's platform. And this information will also be shared with the civil service in general. Their recommendations are to their peers, to the middle management, to the Secretary Generals, as well as to ministers or elected officials and appointed officials in general. So these are the actual rollout of the implementation of the plan of approach. So if you look in it was mentioning what date it had to be done, etc., and it was done, and now with the results of it, the recommendations will be carried out. So in certain cases, some of these recommendations coincide with previous recommendations made, and these are ongoing activities within government. Is this where it was? Mm-hmm. Which question was I on? This one?
Is it the intention?
So the next question was whether it is the intention of government to continue to report in the fashion that they are reporting. So we are working currently on a reporting mechanism that will allow us insight into the progress on the National Development Vision according to our NDV. This way we can report on how far we are as a country on reaching our national goals and in relation to the SDGs. A dashboard has been launched last year, October, and is currently being further developed to be able to accommodate this kind of transparency. So we don't only want to report on the reform measures separately, but as a government in totality on all government's policies, programs, projects that are ongoing via this dashboard. And I think I mentioned in previous presentations that the NDV is in our recent deliberations since moving to a mutual regulation, has been now the basis upon which we are working towards the reforms. So that is one of the key changes also that came as a result of the COHO no longer being on the table. The next question, Mr. Chairman, was what is the financial commitment that has been made, and has the Dutch government committed more than the projects that we are aware of aside from the prison and tax reforms? All ministries and most measures receive some sort of support. This is upon their request, whether it be financial or capacity-wise. So it is not only those two projects that are receiving financing, and as I mentioned, we did get an overview from BZGA as to how the budget is set up, and once we as a ministry or government department for the execution of a particular measure note that there is a need, a request goes in, there's a discussion with TWO, and then it is worked out how that would be disseminated. So that happens across ministries. The work and in terms of what it's yielding in work and actions, the work and actions lead to sustainable development and a brighter future for St. Martin, in the sense of a lot of things that we wanted to do in the past, and a lot of times we mentioned this was something that was in the pipeline, but whether it was due to capacity or financial constraints, whether it was because of CFT curtailing the capital investments or whatever, we were not able as government over the years to execute them. So this is being used as an opportunity to execute much needed reforms that we had already seen a need for before this became a discussion. And in terms of actual specific actions, like I just mentioned about the civil servants satisfaction survey as a specific action, and the exit survey, which is now being, let's say, worked out into actions, whether it be trainings for particular levels of management, incorporating some of the suggestions from the work group that I just told you was formed from the civil service, in terms of simple things that you can do without even a financial injection that would make the place of work more pleasant, more productive, and take their changes or their recommendations into account as well. And furthermore, it leads to a more holistic approach for sustainable development. MP Bryson asked, under the taxation measure C1, the value-added tax still being part of the quote-unquote plans, it would appear that it is still something to be reflected. How is this updated in the country package?
Mealtime rules. Don't serve yourself first. Do not eat with your mouth open. Don't rest your elbows on the table. Don't make noise when eating. Does not apply when enjoying KFC buckets. When we bucket together, we are as we really are.
Social and health insurances. Your social and health insurances.
Are you SZV insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXV is cardless. Request your My SXV account today and enter the virtual office of SXV. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXV, yeah. Your social and health insurances.
During the hurricane season, a potential tropical cyclone can produce rainfall that can cause flash flooding and rockfalls. Stay away from flood-prone areas during heavy rainfall, such as Jump Up Casino on Emma Plain Road in Phillipsburg, ATLH Road Roundabout, L.B. Scott Road from Emilio Wilson Park until Cake House Supermarket, Zaker's Gut from Petro Plus gas station until the Seventh-day Adventist Church, Welcalaken Road Cahill from Welcalaken Road Roundabout until the One-Tete Loque Roundabout, Beacon Hill Road from Sunset Bar and Grill until the beginning of White Sands Road, and Rhine Road, also known as Mullet Bay Road, after Sonesto Maho Beach Hotel to the entrance of Cooper Coy from the intersection of the University Drive until the intersection of Rio Grande. For more information on how you can keep yourself and your family safe this hurricane season, visit stmartingolf.org/hurricane. This public service announcement is brought to you by the government of St. Martin.
When I look at what we have now in terms of mutual regulations and understanding, and when I look at what the Parliament and the various factions in Parliament had to evaluate in the COHO, I don't think there's any comparison to that the situation now is better than had we had a COHO forced down the throat of this Parliament and the people of St. Martin. I just want that to be for the record. That is my position. I think to say, are there need for improvements, more transparency, more oversight? Sure, but nothing compared to what we would be facing if we had a COHO within this kingdom and this country. That would be a very far shot from being able to even have any form of oversight. Because if you recall in the COHO, for example, there wouldn't be much sense of even having this dialogue right now, because there's another entity that's in charge of the reform, and they can, be questioned, or not even an elected representative to be held accountable. I appreciate that I have the opportunity through you, Mr. Chairman, to question the Prime Minister about what concerns I have with whatever the mutual regulations are, and very importantly, that anything that has budgetary or legislative consequences has to come to the Parliament of St. Martin first. And that is also important. And in that sense, one of the issues I do want to ask about is related to the measures under taxation, and specifically C4. No, that's the wrong one. Yes, C1. And this is, of course, the essence of tax reform. And there's two things that keep reappearing, or seem to be reappearing in this country package, mutual agreement, or whatever we want to call it. We've asked a question, or I have asked a question regarding the position of a value-added tax being indeed a part of the plans, and in previous answers that we had received that, no, that was just, let's say, a sort of a recommendation, but that would not be something that would be implemented. Nonetheless, it continues in successive country packages to appear. I don't know if it's stated as an example, but when I read what is here, broadening the tax base and shifting from direct to indirect taxation through the introduction of VAT, et cetera, et cetera. So I just need an update once again. Maybe I'm going to have to ask this every country package that comes to Parliament, but I need to understand what's happening with that. But also, in the elucidation to that point, in terms of an update, it states that a decision memorandum position paper was adopted in the previous period and presented to Parliament. To my recollection, unless I'm mistaken, what we did get as Parliament was a presentation from the Minister of Finance regarding tax reform. I don't recall a position paper or decision memorandum being sent to the Parliament. If that was the intention, is that still going to be done? Is that something on its way? Or is this referring to the presentation that was made by the Minister of Finance? I do think it would be very interesting that if there is a position paper and the intention is to have it presented to Parliament, because maybe this is something, speaking in the future tense, it would be interesting for the members of Parliament to have that. Another point within the country package that I continue to observe is with regard to permits. And One of the things that has come up is the efficiency or lack thereof of our permitting system. This is under section E3, just if the Prime Minister would like to look. Since the inception of the pilot project, January 16, 2023, changes and revisions have taken place. I know this is not specifically the portfolio of the Prime Minister, but if I can just get a general update on the success or the progress of this pilot project. I have heard differing views from particularly within the business community that it didn't really turn out the way we may have hoped. Would be good to get an update on that from the Prime Minister. Generally speaking, my position is that both the Arbeidsvreemdelingen law and the LTU have to be updated to really properly synchronize between the two. I have been very busy with that, with both of the ministries as well now with the Department of Legal Affairs. That is, of course, a very complex legislative effort. But whatever is being done in the interim, if the pilot project was one of them, I would like an update on that.
The Prime Minister continued to sort of admonish / maybe lecture that Parliament can call meetings. Of course, that's always the case. However, today we're sitting with a meeting that was requested 4 months ago. And so, of course, while we can call meetings to debate and ask to give account, that too needs to be taken into consideration. But with that statement, I would want to ask of the Prime Minister, based on the work of the TWO and the local organization, what legislation is en route to the Parliament of St. Martin? So specific based on the plans of approach or reports, the plans of approach, or reports, what specific legislation is en route to the Parliament of St. Martin? The Prime Minister referred to the fact that the country package is no longer called country package. Is this unilaterally by the government of St. Martin, or is it an agreed upon decision, position by the signatories to the mutual agreement, namely the government of St. Martin and the State Secretary of Kingdom Relations? So is there a general agreement that we should drop the term country package is my question. The plans of approach are now being worked on. My initial set of questions, and including these, actually would like to know more specifics regarding that execution report. Give me topics, give me status. Where are we with the different matters? So plans of approach being worked on. Are there any specific ones that the Prime Minister can mention? How many of these plans or a result of these plans have been approved by the COM? And following such, my question is, then what? Then what happens then? I too want to refer, which is not the first time that I do it, I've done it to the minister responsible, and that's the Minister of Finance, regarding this so-called Beslis Nota, that in the country package, or at least in the report, it is stated has been, in other words, approved by Parliament. So my question is, what exactly is this note? Cannot be, I hope, the 8-page document that was presented in here by the Minister of Finance. Is that the government's tax reform outline decision? So if the Prime Minister would have some further information regarding that, because it keeps coming back in these reports that this decision by the COM, this report by the COM has been approved by the Parliament. And I'm trying to understand what. Because the last thing, when I questioned this matter, the Minister of Finance said, well, next in line for you, Parliament, are the draft legislations. And in other words, told us, wait on that. Wait and see what the legislation contains. And a similar remark like, when you get a legislation, then you do whatever you have to do or to ask.
Your social and health insurance is your social and health insurances.
Are you SXV insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXV is cardless. Request your My SXV account today and enter the virtual office of SXV. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
Your social and health insurances.
With you, the new Kentaco. A combination that will surprise the most curious palates. Combining the deliciousness of KFC chicken and the practicality of a taco. With a doubly delicious ergonomic shape. Wow! Compatible with all types of bites. New Kentaco. Enjoy a double breaded chicken breast with our secret recipe. Cheese, lettuce, and tomato. New Kentaco, the innovation that's in everyone's mouth.
It's hurricane season. Are you prepared? Here are a few tips to keep in mind to help keep you and your family safe. The Atlantic hurricane season runs from June 1st to November 30th, with the peak occurring between mid-August and late October. This hurricane season, be sure to put together a go bag. A disaster supply kit including a flashlight, batteries, cash, first aid and supplies, medications, and copies of your critical information if you need to evacuate. This public service announcement was brought to you by the government of St. Martin.
But it will not happen by serendipity. It will only happen if we accept that the hour is now and the future is ours to grasp. And how many more noble and moral imperatives must we remind the world that is there for us to seize, to be the subject of this research? I referred earlier to the Spanish Armada, but it was really the invention of gunpowder and navigational tools that unleashed terror and the quest for dominion for centuries as we continue to experience. Today's world values knowledge and services. And it is against that background, therefore, we understand that there will be an expansion exponentially of power and a consolidation of wealth for those who have access. If science and technology is not to be allowed to run amok in an unregulated global environment, we need equally to appreciate what must be done in terms of accountability and transparency by our multilateral institutions and through domestic legal enforcement if we are not to see the undermining of our democracies and the unraveling of progressive opportunities for development. My friends, there can be no more appropriate place, Miguel, for us to have met in this meeting today. Your country has been one of the true beacons of the global south and of the developing world with respect to innovation through science and technology.
Senator Cummins believes public-private sector innovation is needed as Barbados and the region look to develop a new energy arrangement. She told stakeholders at a Caribbean Climate Investment Program breakfast meeting a national energy initiative will be rolled out in November.
We are in the process of updating Barbados' national energy plan. By November, we expect to be able to launch with our Prime Minister in the lead, perhaps in the margins of the climate event, one of the climate events, we hope to be able to launch not just a Barbados National Energy Plan, but a Barbados National Energy Investment Plan that allows the private sector and partners such as many of you in this room to be able to identify both greenfield and brownfield opportunities for investment in the energy space.
And the Energy and Business Minister says an updated Integrated Resources and Resilience Plan is also coming.
But the world has changed so rapidly, technology has evolved so quickly, the space has been crowded in so amazingly and incredibly that we now are in a place where in 2023, we made the decision earlier this year that we needed to update the IIRP, which also gave us our energy mix, and we expect also to be working with one of our international multilateral partners, I should say, to have a storage strategy as well. So we will have a new energy mix, a new storage strategy in both instances, which will require investment.
Senator Cummins says the energy sector is abuzz with activity and has given notice Barbados will play host to a global energy forum in June next year. Trevor Thorpe for the Business Report.
We need action now. We need action today. That is the reason I have proposed an SDG stimulus that would release at least $500 billion per year in affordable long-term finance for sustainable development and climate action in developing countries. That includes increasing the capital base of the multilateral development banks, changing their business models to leverage far more private finance at reasonable cost to developing countries, increase contingency financing for countries in need, and creating an effective debt relief mechanism. Those efforts are making progress, but too slowly. They have been discussed by groups of member states, from Paris to Bridgetown.